fellow romance readers, I'm Amy.
And I'm Sarah, and this is Post-Book Depression. You know that feeling you get when you finish a good book that you didn't want to end?
Have you finished a book and just weren't ready to move on from the story and its beloved characters? You find yourself needing just a little more? This multi-trope romance podcast gives you the opportunity to dig deeper with us into books we love as we discuss all the reasons we can't move on.
Feeling chatty? You can continue the conversation with us on Instagram at Post-Book Depression Podcast or on Facebook in our Post-Book Depression discussion group.
We would be so grateful if you would subscribe to our podcast and take a moment to leave a review.
Are you ready? Let's discuss.
Hi everyone, welcome to the show. I'm Amy.
And I'm Sarah, and today we're going to be discussing What We Keep by Jennifer Millikin.
The first few minutes we're going to do a brief review of this story without any spoilers. Then we are going to shift into a deeper book discussion that's going to include lots of spoilers, but don't worry, we're going to let you know before we do shift over into that deeper book discussion.
That's right. So before we jump in, Amy, tell us a little bit about this story.
A young woman is rescued from a house fire by a local firefighter, and they form an instant connection. They fall hard and they fall fast. A fairy tale beginning with a picture-perfect marriage. When the tiniest of issues turns into something bigger than the two of them, they are forced to face the frailty of their troubled marriage. This is an emotional journey about determination and resolve. Sarah, what did you think about What We Keep?
I loved the story. It was so, how do I say this? So many thoughts. I'm trying to not spoil anything. I felt enlightened to see the other side of somebody else's perspective that is living through what these characters walk through. I think it's very easy to make assumptions and judge others, and so I really like the way the author handled this topic. It definitely opened my eye to another side of what this can look like versus what I might be familiar with. And I think it's one of the most beautiful stories of reconciliation that I've ever read. I loved it. What'd you think?
100% agree. I absolutely love this author. She's one of my favorites. I've been working my way through her backlist. And this story is just so heartfelt. It's very raw. It's very emotional. It's hard to read at times.
Yeah.
But like you said, I really enjoyed that perspective that
too.
we get on the topic at hand, which we'll get into in the deeper discussion.
Yes.
All right, the ratings, angst.
It was a 2.
2 for me as well. There's some weight to the story, and there were some things I didn't see coming that made the story pretty heavy.
Yeah.
In my mind. Humor.
Like, I put 1, but I really felt like that was maybe a bit high.
I did 0. I don't remember laughing or chuckling one time.
I think there were some moments early on that just made me kind of...
Okay.
Like sweetness,
Okay.
humor maybe? Sweet
Okay.
humor? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay, like that, but not... It's not a comedy, folks.
I feel 1 is high, though.
It might have been.
It's okay. We'll stay with our ratings. Somewhere in between 0 and 1.
Yeah, I struggled on a couple of these ratings.
Spiciness.
This is the one I struggled. Okay, I'm going to tell you what I rated it.
Okay.
But then I'm going to tell you why. I rated it a 1.75. I feel like you could teeter on going higher because of the frequency of intimate scenes. However, she is not descriptive.
No.
At all. So while there's intimacy frequently throughout...
Very tastefully done.
It is so tastefully done. Chef's kiss the way she did it.
I should add I did 1.75 as well.
Yeah.
Had the same train of thought that you did.
So good. I wish more authors wrote it the way that she did, because you get that, you feel the connection of the characters without having to be in the bedroom with them.
Yes.
That makes sense.
Tears.
3.
I did 2.5. I probably could have done 3. I definitely cried. The heaviness of what the characters face is a lot at times.
I love finding authors who make you cry.
I know, me
like
too.
Real tears, not your heart cried, but you literally cried.
I literally cried several times.
I don't know if Jennifer Millikin understands the power she has over you.
That's such a good point.
I mean, if she
It
knew,
takes a lot to make me cry.
She holds the power. It's all we needed, folks. We just need Jennifer to make it to our podcast list, and then Amy's going to cry. It's a good one.
Overall,
5.
5.
5.
5.
Best book I've read
it's
this year.
It is such a beautiful story. And I know I've said that several times, but I don't know of a better description for the story. It's so beautiful with a very hard journey.
Yeah.
It's emotional. The layout of the writing is thoughtful too. And I loved how she chose to lay the writing out in this story.
I did too. And I'm very excited for us to discuss that because that was
Me
one of
too.
my favorite things about this story.
Same. That concludes the spoiler-free quick review of this story. Now we're going to shift into a deeper book discussion that's going to include lots of spoilers. So if you haven't read this story, please go check it out, of course, and then come back and join us on this deeper discussion. We would love to connect with you on social media. You can find us on Instagram at Postbook Depression Podcast, on Facebook in our Postbook Depression discussion group, and you can also email us at postbookdepressionpodcast@gmail.com. We talked in our intro about how we really liked the way the author chose to do the writing style of this story. And I want to talk about that just right here off the top and how she starts us off in therapy.
Yeah.
And the female main character, Avery, is going to therapy. Let's begin our discussion at the top.
This was so intriguing to me how she did this.
Me
especially
too.
like for part one of the story where we begin at therapy, we go to the back. She's telling the story so you get the glimpse of the past. Then she goes back to therapy, the back and forth, back and forth. One of the things that I loved, and I have never read Jennifer Millikin before, so this was my introduction to her writing. So I fell in love within this first chapter. And one of the things that I just loved this quote is she said, if a hero would sacrifice his love to save the world, but a villain would sacrifice the world to save his love, what does that make me? And Avery thinks in her mind, I would sacrifice the world to save my husband. Oh, girl.
Oh.
I was so in this story.
Right? It hooks you.
I devoured
immediately.
it.
Yes.
Absolutely devoured this story. I also, because we know her husband is a firefighter, and she said at one point, something to the thing of he caught himself on fire, or when he caught on fire. So for a good portion of the story, I was thinking, oh my goodness, they meet in a fire and then he catches on fire. So I did not,
You weren't thinking figuratively, you were thinking literally.
I thought he literally, and then that was going to be the story of the struggle of recovering from that. I didn't know it was going to take
So it took a hard look for you.
so hard. I thought, oh, I was so wrong. And then I felt kind of foolish. I was like, she didn't mean literally.
I love that you went down that path. I particularly liked that the author chose to write it in this order and in this way so that the readers organically can fall in love right along with her in her journey and how they met and just that whole beginning portion of their relationship. It was very fast. And you know me, I don't like an insta-love story typically, but I really fell for their connection. I felt it was believable. I was here for it the whole time. And I really enjoyed how Jennifer chose to take us on that journey of falling in love with Gabriel from the very top of the story, essentially.
Yeah, I was here for their intense connection because I do feel like people have that.
I do too. It's like, very rare, but I 100%. Do think they have it.
I think that there are people out there that are just really fortunate enough to meet the person that it's just, but their chemistry, holy smokes. It's like insane off the charts. But one of the things,
the pages.
I know you literally
more of that figurative smoke.
I know. We're smoking. One of the things that she does is she divides it in part 1 and part 2. What I loved about this is that we are getting the therapy sessions between her and her therapist, and then we're getting their past, where you're getting a little bit of Gabriel, but the whole first part of the story is just Avery's perspective. And then when part 2 rolls around, we get Gabriel's point of view, because we love a dual point of view.
Oh, yes.
So this was an interesting way where not very many authors do it that way, I feel like. You don't have it where you're kind of getting one person's perspective for a good chunk of the story, and then all of a sudden it shifts to being both perspectives. And I was so here for that because I'm always wondering what the other person is thinking.
Me too.
I really appreciated that she took the second part and made that happen so that we can get Gabriel's emotions and feelings and thoughts on everything that has transpired throughout the way they got together and their marriage and all the things.
I definitely agree with you on that. And I have to say to this point, I know we're getting a little bit ahead by saying this, but I want to address it now because it goes with the flow of the story. I 100% was shocked that they got divorced. I did not see the divorce coming at all. In this whole therapy session, Jennifer really had me looking left when really it was right. The last part of part one essentially is when she blew my mind in the best way. And we can get more into that when we get to that part of the discussion. But I have to say, I really attribute that to the way she chose to lay out the writing style.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how that was going to take place. I just didn't know if they were separated or not. But yeah, I don't think I was quite as shocked, but I was definitely shocked of... there was a lot of moments in this story that shocked me. A lot. That I did.
As they come to mind in our discussion, I would love for you to share those with us.
Well, yeah, okay. Will do.
So the therapy sessions set us up for their meet cute, even though technically they don't meet in the opening scene of the house fire. The story begins after this opening therapy scene where Avery is waking up and realizing that her house is on fire, and she's doing those mental checks. Is my roommate here? Where am I? You know, that you would go through waking up to smelling smoke. And when she realizes that it's her house on fire, she, of course, calls 911 and does exactly what they tell her to do. Get down, don't breathe. I really loved that she took a second, even though that's really all she had, to grab a picture and her purse. I love that she kept her purse by her bed, because I don't do that. I keep my purse and things in the mudroom downstairs. I don't keep any of that nearby. And I should, just because of a number of things that could happen. But she felt very prepared in this moment, as prepared as one can be for a situation like this. Yeah,
I was impressed with the way that she kept her composure through a very terrifying situation. But we get introduced to Gabriel, although we don't know it's Gabriel, because he's the one that rescues her, saves her life. And then she wants to thank him for saving her life. So can we jump to
Let's do it.
So she goes to the fire station to introduce herself and say thank you to the gentleman who saved her life. And I could totally picture this gorgeous firefighter coming out, and she just being there. And her outfit she described was so cute.
Yes.
I could see it in my mind. I was like...
You go, girl.
I know. I was like, oh.
Dress to impress.
I know. And you could tell. They were so attracted to each other immediately. And I love that he asked for her number. Oh, I was swooning.
I was too. I love that. I love that his fellow firefighters and his dad, which we learn is the captain, is encouraging him to go out. And
I love too that he said, I was already on my way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was already on my way.
So they go out for coffee, and they just instantly build this connection, and this chemistry that they have is so strong. They have this whirlwind romance. I mean, almost immediately.
Yeah,
they jump
she moves in with him.
Jump into marriage about a month or two after they've met, and they have just this super strong dynamic and relationship. Their marriage is like solid foundation. Nothing can break them.
I know.
Is how it feels in their relationship. Almost too good to be true, but they just have such a good connection. Let's shift over for a bit and let's talk about each of their family dynamics, because these play an integral role in who they are as people. And I want to start with Avery. In her family situation, we have her dad, we have her sister Cam. Let's just break these down, starting with her dad and the complicated feelings that she has with her dad.
So Avery's relationship with her dad is, like you said, complicated. Their mother passed away when she was 10, and we don't know at the time that she's 10. We get this in the therapy session. She raises her sister Cam. They have a neighbor who comes and will stay the night, but she makes dinner for them. And when the therapist asks, how old were you? And she says 10, I was blown away. Blown away, because her dad is off doing business. He just did not stop after his wife died. He didn't try to be home more. So she really is a parent at 10 years old to Cam.
And feels resentment.
And rightfully so, because he stole her childhood away from her. She already lost her mom, and that's something that changes somebody. She's already having to grow up before her time. So the fact that her dad did not stick around long enough, because he's always doing these business trips, she feels very complicated feelings towards her dad. However, she has never voiced that resentment that she has towards him. When he comes home, she doesn't even call him to let him know that her house is burned down. It's been I think a week
Yeah.
it had passed. And she said, well, I didn't want to text you or call you. I thought that this is something a child should tell their parent in person. But he has news of his own.
Yes, he does. Let's talk about the news.
He's getting married to a woman he met on a plane.
And it sounds like that this is not new for him. He does have a lot of women that have passed through their lives. So the fact that he brought a woman home was not surprising to Avery and Cam.
Yeah.
But the fact that he was getting married to her so quickly was a bit of a shock. I did really enjoy the way Avery processed that situation and how when her dad kind of makes the declaration that he thought she would be excited for them, and she corrects him and says, this is a lot of information and surprise, and we're just processing. I like that he then stood back and took a step back and, you're right, this is a lot to process. So I felt like it was a good perspective that Avery had to put him in his place.
Yeah. She did it very delicately, though, because Cam is not like that.
No.
Cameron is so funny to me. She doesn't shy away from her feelings or emotions, which is Cameron kind of brings a little bit of the humor. She kind of has a little bit of dry sense of humor. She's sarcastic. So I think that for me is probably where the humor would lie in those moments throughout the story.
Speaking of Cameron, let's talk about her and Avery's bond.
I love how close they are. And I love that when the fire happens and she has to stay with Cameron, which is another funny scene. Her dad doesn't even realize that she's living at home because he's gone all the time. So it's kind of comical to me.
You're right.
But she stays with Cameron because she doesn't have a bedroom anymore. It's like a weight room that her dad turned into from one of his women. But that Cameron is the younger sister, but she is offering comfort to Avery in that moment. That was a really hard but very sweet moment because, Cameron feels like she almost lost her mom.
Yes.
Not just her sister, but her mother figure in her life.
That was an emotional scene when Cameron takes a moment to be grateful for the fact that Avery is still alive and with her, and that could have gone very wrong, and Cameron says that. Yeah.
I love their support for each other. I feel like for the most part they're very supportive of what the other is going through. There's some other things, but we will dig into those later on.
Let's move over to Gabriel's family dynamics. There's a lot to unpack here, a lot of heaviness to unpack here.
Yeah.
He had a sibling, Nash, who died very young.
20, I think.
And this has really taken a toll on the family dynamics. His father, his mother, him, the relationship amongst the three of them. They've got a shrine to Nash in the house. There's just a lot to unpack. Let's talk about Gabriel's family.
Gabriel's brother, Nash, died of a heart attack. He was actually picking up Gabriel. Gabriel was inebriated. They were in the hospital for Gabriel because of an altercation while he was under the influence. And while they're there, Nash has a heart attack and had an underlying heart condition.
Yes.
So he died. It was Nash's dream to be a firefighter. And I am so heartbroken for Gabriel because he feels this need in order to please his parents that he needs to do what Nash wanted to do, kind of to preserve his memory a little bit.
It's like time has stood still. Once Nash passed away, the parents couldn't move on.
Yeah. And his mother won't even say his name without sobbing. They can't talk about him. It's kind of this unspoken thing. But yet in the house, the walls are lined with everything of Nash. His room has at a standstill. When she tried to pack it up, she couldn't. There's like one little photo to Gabriel, which is ironic because when you find out that he works at the fire station and his dad is his captain, I would think they're really close because he kind of makes a comment of that he gets to spend more time with his dad, and so that's good. So you think that him and his dad would have this like really strong bond. It doesn't really come off that way. It just seems that he's doing everything he can to fill in
the void
of his brother. So it's very complicated. There's a lot of resentment towards his parents, a lot of guilt, I think, for him. And also too, we find out, he really doesn't enjoy being a firefighter.
Yeah. And there's this feeling of never measuring up.
Yeah.
Or his parents ever being proud of him, or giving him any kind of encouragement in any way. It's just comparison.
Right.
All of his life, that's all he's known since Nash has passed away.
Yeah.
What a hard journey to walk.
Yeah. I don't understand it, and I don't know. I didn't have many fond feelings towards either sets of parents, if I'm being honest. I was like, oh.
That's fair. Gabriel and Avery have been married for a bit of time, and she is working on her dreams of becoming a therapist. And one of the things that I do love about Gabriel is that he always puts Avery first, but almost to a fault, which is a bit of a problem. They have this conversation pretty early on when she's starting to pursue the dreams of being a therapist about how, when she asks him about when did you want to become a firefighter, and this is where they open up about the fact that he does not, he's actually only doing that to fill the void of Nash's dreams. And she encourages him to do something else. Like, if you don't enjoy being a firefighter, be something else. But he puts those dreams on hold so that Avery can pursue her. Let's talk about this.
It was hard for me. I understand the reasoning behind it. And I do understand when you're living life, sometimes you make choices because it's what you have to do in that moment. And then years later, when you're miserable, in hindsight, you realize I probably should have just taken a leap of faith. I appreciated it to an extent.
Yes.
And then I was really kind of, I don't want to say frustrated with Avery, but
She does take ownership for that, though, in the therapy session.
She does, and I'm glad she does, because I felt like there had to have been a point where I would have been like, Tag, you're it. It's your turn. Like, go for it. But I also felt like Gabriel, too, was quick to find the reasons why they couldn't.
That's true.
So, I don't know. It was a problem for me. I didn't like it. I'm all about, I believe in you. Do it. Kind of like Support, yeah.
You mentioned earlier that on the night of Nash's heart attack that Gabriel had been drinking, and that was part of the reason why they were in the hospital too. And we learned that is why he abstains from alcohol in his adult life, for good reason.
Yeah.
He carries a little bit of guilt along with that, and making the smarter choice to abstain just in general. Living the life as a firefighter is very, very hard. I have a good friend who is a firefighter here in our town, and just listening to some of the stories that he's told and just how heavy it is at time, and having to disassociate and compartmentalize and all of that. And then, of course, all of the brothers that they lose and sisters that they lose in the line of duty takes its toll on mental health and all of that. Gabriel's friend, who is also a firefighter, Ryan, he ends up passing away in a fire. He made a choice to try and save a young boy or a teenage boy, and knowing it was unsafe to do so. And so there's a little bit of anger with Gabriel is feeling towards Ryan. He's hurt, of course. He's sad and anguished over losing his friend. And it starts very small with the drinking.
Yeah.
Trying to cover the pain and just take a step back and not be in that moment. And he comes home, and this is where it's a bit heart-crushing, because she knows his struggle with alcohol, and he asks her to get drunk with him and forget.
Just that night.
Just this one time.
Yeah.
And she is compliant to that. And she does hold some regret and responsibility in how things play out because of that choice.
Yeah.
Let's spend some time now talking about Gabriel's struggle.
I did not agree with Avery's decision. I felt like she had enough warning bells going off in her mind. With that being said, I think in that moment, Gabriel would have done it anyway.
I think you're right. I absolutely agree with you.
I think he would have made any excuse, because he was just, that was a tipping point for him. While I understand the feelings that she feels and the guilt that she feels, because she feels like she played a role in that. I mean, could you sit there and wonder, would he have chosen differently if I had said no? Sure. But standing on the outside, I don't think she should have to carry that weight, because ultimately at the end of the day, Gabriel made that decision.
True.
But I do feel like she knows that she made the wrong choice. I think as a spouse that you're supposed to support somebody, and if you know that they have an addiction, you're supposed to be their accountability partner. And I think she made the wrong decision in that night, trying to help ease his pain.
I've talked a handful of times on the show about how one of my biggest struggles with reading stories is when a character is on a path of self-destruction.
Yeah.
And this is one of those very hard journeys for me to read and witness, knowing how intense of his struggle with alcohol is and just continuing down that spiral. It's very hard to be on the sidelines and just watch it to implode the way it affected their marriage, and in the end implode as well, because of his choices and the behavior and the addiction that he has. He surprises her with a trip to St. Lucia. She was wanting to take some time away, and then he asked her to wait a little bit, and then ends up surprising her with this trip to St. Lucia. And what was supposed to be a very happy time for them starts off that way. And we learn that it's the anniversary of his brother's passing, and he chooses to continue on that path of self-destruction to try and numb that pain as well.
Which was really upsetting because he promised her. Like, at the beginning of the trip, he said, I'm done drinking. And she felt relief because she didn't bring it up.
Yeah.
And I really struggled with this because she's a therapist. She's a marriage and family therapist. And yet she lacked the skills to communicate with her husband about what he was doing.
Yeah.
And to call him out on it. And I found that so interesting. Very much of those who can't do teach, and those who can't teach Jim kind of thing. It's like, you can tell other people in therapy that you should communicate and do these things, but you can't even practice that in your own home. It just felt, it was kind of hard. But I'm an over communicator, so I would be like, buddy, you got a problem.
One of the things that I really did find value in all of this happening, they had, before the St. Lucia trip, or right around that time, I think it was maybe even on the St. Lucia trip, they're talking about wanting to expand and start a family.
It's on that trip.
Okay, I thought so too. And so they make that decision to start a family. She's going to stop taking her birth control. I have so much respect for her when she discovered that he had become drunk that night and drank, that she immediately decided, I will not bring a child into this problem. I just respected her so much, because that takes a lot. You're at a place in life where you're wanting to move to that stage in your life, but realizing it's not in the best interest of your family to do that.
Right. Which I want to make mention of something. This happens later on, but you brought that part up. He does not know that she ever went back on the pill. And when he finds out that she had started taking that pill the night, because he says, how did you know? And she said, I immediately took my pill. And the way he breaks down sobbing and the anguish that he feels because he realized all the things that he ruined in that moment, and that she felt like she couldn't even start a family with him. That was really hard. But anyway.
After the St. Lucia trip, she's had her can full, trying to decide what to do. She's not talking about it. She's sweeping it under the rug, basically. She gets a call from him, and he is very anguished and needs her to come get him. He has been drinking and chose to drive drunk, and we later learn he also hit a person.
Right.
What an intense scene.
Yeah. Her
picking him up. I felt every emotion from her in this. The anger, the resolve, the acceptance, a bit frustration, all of those things. In the end of the story, he does address, in this part, this time in his life, he had seen the pity in her eyes, and he chose to drive drunk because he knew the response that he would get from her, and he didn't want to deal with that. Yep. That was a heavy weight to bear. I've known of firefighters who have had similar behavior, not that they have hit somebody, but that they have struggles with alcohol and have been put on probationary action, and if it keeps up, they do lose their job. I mean, they're in a public figure position. They're to treat themselves that way. Yeah. And they do have a higher standard in the community and in the towns that they represent. And I think it's important for them to maintain. I know it is a higher standard, of course, but they chose that profession, and as a part of that, it is a public image.
I feel like, though, and I don't know if this is in all areas, but where we are at, I know for a fact from somebody who had sought this out that our first responders, they do not receive the type of therapy that they should. They should
Correct.
they should be required to have, I think, weekly sessions. We have a couple of my husband's best friends, they're both firefighters, and they see a lot.
Yeah.
They see and endure a lot.
Yes.
And nobody understands that. It's kind of like the military. When you go to war, nobody understands when you come back home, you're a civilian again, but the reason why you're so bonded with the men and the women that you serve with is because they are over there with you. They understand. It's the same thing with our first responders.
Yes.
People do not understand what that job fully entails and what that does to a mental
health.
the mental health of a person. I feel like they just don't receive the kind of care that they should. I really don't. I think most of them are probably walking around with some PTSD from things that they've witnessed.
Yes.
And the jobs and the calls that they get.
And I said all that to say it was not a surprise to me that he was expected to serve time. I think it was a fair punishment that he doesn't get it just written off, that he does have to deal with it. I think.
Okay, that's where the surprise.
Okay.
I did not realize that it was going to take a turn where he would hit somebody and serve prison time. And when they say what his sentence is going to be,
I felt like 3 years was long, especially since the person he hit was fine.
Well, and they were also drunk.
They were also drunk.
They
so
were
the circumstances of his particular situation, I agree. I felt like I was surprised by the duration of it. And I also did not expect, just as the story as a whole, I didn't expect for their story to take him to prison.
I didn't either. And that's where this is one of the moments where I was blown away. Mm-hmm. I felt like a gut punch when she said it.
Up until this point, I wasn't sure where he was while she's going to therapy and all of this. I wasn't sure where he was in life. Mm-hmm. I honestly, I was surprised they were divorced. So I thought perhaps maybe they're still living just silently with each other as roommates, and there's just this animosity. So the fact that he was in prison, I was surprised as well. I need to clarify. I wasn't surprised as a firefighter and his choices that he would have to face those consequences through that punishment. But for this particular story and this character, I was surprised he went to prison.
Well, given what had happened, I was more surprised, and his role in his life, never having had any kind of altercation or anything like that, I was surprised they didn't send him to rehab.
Yes, me too.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then, but would it have impacted him the same way? I don't know.
Yeah.
So I like that she wrote it this way. Even though I hated it, I was in agony.
Oh, yeah. One of the scenes that I cried on was when he served her with divorce papers and wouldn't see her.
That was the second blow.
I did not see that coming.
I did not either.
It was such a mind-blown moment for me, and my heart and spirit were just crushed.
The way he did it.
Yes, was so cold. And to learn that he was doing it because he loved her so much, in his mind, this is how he was trying to protect her. Oh, it just broke my heart for her so badly.
I was so frustrated on her behalf. One, I would not have read his letter either. Mm-hmm. I would not. So I was kind of fist pumping, like, yeah, you tell him if he can't show his face, he doesn't get the letter. She doesn't have to read it. One of the things that I was so infuriated on her behalf was that he took her choice away.
Yes. Yes.
There was no communication, no conversation. It was just...
It's done.
He made the decision for her, and I felt like that was incredibly unfair because he made a lot of assumptions. He made
really
a lot
did.
of assumptions, like I screwed up beyond beyond repair. She can never forgive me. I can't live with the guilt. And I felt like it was such a coward's way out. And she felt that too.
I even thought, literally until the moment she signed the papers, she's not going to sign them. Mm-hmm. She's not going to sign them. She's going to hang on. She's going to hang on. And then she signed them. I'm like, no, she didn't. She signed the papers. No, she's giving up. I was just
distraught.
Yes. I was so upset.
I'm so proud of Jennifer.
I know.
She made Amy cry.
One of the hardest things for me outside of the divorce papers was watching her move on with her life. Mm. This was so gut-wrenching as a reader to walk through this journey with her and move on the way she spiraled out of control at her job with this couple, dating Hudson, all of these, just Hudson especially. Mm-hmm. I thought nope, she's not gonna go on a date. Nope, they're not gonna sleep together. Nope, they're not gonna move on.
This is where,
they are.
That's where I really appreciate this author and her ability to shed light on intimacy without shedding light on intimacy, because I
don't think I could have stomached it.
Because it would have gotten into the territory of a triangle for me. Mm-hmm. And I'm very thankful she didn't do it that way. I'm very thankful that a month before she's ever reunited with Gabriel, that Hudson had said he couldn't live with a ghost.
Yep.
That relationship. But the fact that they were together almost a year, Amy.
Ooh. Oh, that's a long time.
It's a long time. But what else are you supposed to do?
Especially since she was with Gabriel for 5. So that's a fifth of their life together.
Here's what I thought. And I have to do this mentally when we go down these roads. Which, first of all, let me just say, I didn't want to chuckle when she went off on this couple.
Oh, this was a good comedic moment.
But I
should have bumped my rating up to 0.25 for this scene.
It kind of was funny. Because she's sitting there. Well, first of all, that guy is just a tool.
Yes,
I wanted to say so much. Any man who has the audacity to tell their wife, who has birthed children for them, that they're no longer attracted to their body. Listen, buddy, we beat ourselves up on our own. Mm-hmm. We don't need you to point out all the flaws of what childbirth does to a body or breastfeeding does to a body. I will get off that soapbox. Ooh, but let me tell you, when she tells them what she tells them, I was kind of like, I would have done the same. I would have done the same. But I did think it was funny when the woman said she felt unsafe. And the other therapist hates that because he feels like people throw that phrase around too much. I'm like, they do. We always feeling unsafe. I feel unsafe.
But I loved that the therapist that she worked for was partnering with was very kind. He extended kindness to her knowing she was grieving. Yeah. And asked her to take a leave of absence, and then in the end was ready to retire, so she lost her job. That was kind of sad. That was a bummer.
Yeah.
She finally reads the letter because the lawyer, Gabriel's lawyer, sends the paperwork, and it's been all this time, and sends the letter that Gabriel had written to her, and she finally reads it, and he suggests that she use their story. And she does. She decides to write a book and spends a good portion of the second half of this story writing theirs.
Yeah.
And I like how she mirrored it to what we'd already read.
I know.
That was very cool.
It was so cool.
Fast forwarding just a bit, we have Cam who's getting married coming up, and she has purchased this archway for her ceremony. And it's in a little town called Sugar Creek, a little ways away. And she has asked Avery to come with her to this appointment to check it out. And so Avery takes this opportunity to book this cabin in Sugar Creek for a couple of weeks to have a little self-writing retreat away. And lo and behold, we get to this little wood workshop, and they love the work and ask to see the person who designed it. Did you see this coming?
Yes, okay. And I'm going to tell you why. But first, there is another funny moment. Cameron not knowing how to open the umbrella. Oh. Because it's like raining because they're from Phoenix. And so they don't, and they're in flip-flops. They're not even in proper shoes and stuff. And she's like, you can't open it in the car. Funny. Okay.
You're right.
Anyway, but my one was too high. It was a funny moment. Yes, I did. Because when they are in, I believe it's St. Lucia, maybe before, I'm trying to remember correctly, she asked if he ever wanted to do anything else, and he said, well, I'm good at, and then he stops. I think it is St. Lucia, because he's like, what are we talking about? I can't get a different job. We're going to start a family. We're going to do this and all that. And so the second that they go there, I knew for a fact he loved woodworking.
I had forgotten the St. Lucia comment.
So I wasn't surprised. I'm like, he's gonna come in.
Let me clarify. I was not I fully expected she's going to run into him in this little town. I did not expect it to be the guy who made the arch for Cam's wedding.
Oh, I did. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I wasn't surprised. As soon as we find out where she's at, I mean, the second they mention the arch, I'm like, he made the arch.
I love that you picked up on that. But I love even more the reception that they give each other, and she
bolts.
He runs after her and touches her. Cam pulls up with the car and she jumps in and they speed away. And then, of course, naturally, she's going to just have her mind on him the whole time and wonder what's going on. I had a little bit of respect for the fact that she wanted to keep her distance from him because of how badly he hurt her. But as a reader, I, of course, am rooting for them to get back together and make this work again. But I felt like her reaction was very realistic to someone who had been traumatized like she had.
Yeah, I don't think in real life that, I don't know. You'd have to have a really strong pull. Mm-hmm. Really strong pull. Because if somebody hurt me the way he hurt her.
And he had to prove he'd changed.
Yeah.
And wasn't the same. And obviously he did that. She has this cabin, and immediately when there was a description of a cabin next door, I thought, oh, he's in the cabin next door.
I know, especially when he's playing a song
Yes.
that she remembers from their time together, and
Yes.
she hasn't listened to it since. I'm like, oh, he's living next door and she doesn't know.
They take these 2 weeks to reconnect, spend time together. Like Avery, I wasn't sure how it was going to transpire because they live in different cities. They've been intimate with each other again. They're reconnecting, they're rebuilding, but not to the level that they're clear in what's happening between them. There's still a lot of unknown, and they're really not sure where the direction that their relationship's going to go. And so after their cabin visit, or her cabin visit, she goes back home.
Yeah.
There's a lot of questions. They decided they could not live apart, have a long distance relationship after being so close, which I agree that would be very difficult.
One of the things I admired about him was that he said, please don't ask me to return. Because
he said I would,
but please don't ask that. I've got a good thing here. And I love that he was able to vocalize that.
Me too.
I love that the way they were able to point out the areas in their marriage of where they both failed one another.
Yes.
Because they did equally.
That was a great communication, like just conversation that they had.
And one of the things, too, that I do want to touch on, because I think for myself, why I said, and if this were me, I would not, is because I've had family members, very close family members, that they all three had an addiction. They all three died from that addiction. I view addiction so drastically different. This, for me, is like a hard no. Like two of those family members died specifically from alcoholism. So for me, I would be no. And if I was Cameron and that was my sister, I would say, I love you, but if you make this choice, I cannot support you in it. So I'm going to have to back out because I can't watch you go down that road again. And Cameron does kind of do that. What I loved about this, though, was that I know that there are people who have this addiction to alcohol that they can turn their life around. And that is somebody's story. Yeah. And I am thankful for the people like Avery who can stand by them.
Yes.
And recognize that they have a problem and help them through that. And also be able to separate the person that they are from the mistake that they made.
Yes.
While they were under the influence. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like, there was a lot of admiration. So that's why I said I loved this story, because I don't view it through that lens. I view it through the lens of what I've witnessed in my own family. And it was very interesting to see how it can be different. And I really liked that.
Yes, I agree. It's really meaningful to me. One of the biggest surprises for me towards the end was learning that Cam visited Gabriel in prison, and she is part of the reason why he asked for a divorce.
Yeah.
Did you expect that?
No. I did not. I did not see that coming. And I knew something happened whenever Gabriel said, like, him and Cam are having a conversation, and he said, I'm well aware of whatever the line it was that he said. And I thought, what? What did she do? I was surprised, though, that she did not tell him to divorce her, but that she phrased her words in such a way that he felt like that was the best option.
Yeah.
I was happy that Avery, said, I'm very angry with you. Like, I'm mad.
Really liked her response to that, and that she didn't just sweep it under the rug. She addressed it. She was angry about it and did question, would we have gotten a divorce had that not happened? I like that she addressed it.
Yeah, me too.
Let's wrap up our chat with their happily ever after.
He comes to deliver the arch for the wedding. They basically decide they can't live without each other. And they move a little outside of Sugar Creek, which made me happy.
Me too. I'm glad she went to him.
I am too. They are able to start a family. They have a little boy named Nash. I love that. Oh, something else we didn't touch on. They both learn to communicate how their parents have made them feel to their parents. That was a big thing in the story.
Yes, I also, one thing that really made me cry and I was surprised by was when she brought his things to his parents and she was breaking up with his parents too, and just the inner dialogue and just the hardship of having to say goodbye to her second set of parents, I guess, her in-laws.
Yeah.
That was very upsetting to me, and I definitely cried in that as well because I pictured having to say goodbye to my in-laws and how hard that would be in just the situation of it all. But let's talk about quickly their reconciliation or how they talked to their parents and how they made them feel.
So her dad did not, he was kind of taken back a little bit, which I thought, you need to hold the mirror up, sir.
Yes.
Really take a good look at your life. But he was understanding in that, and they were repairing that. He seemed to have a really good marriage, and his wife was helping him through.
We liked Laura in the end.
We did. With Gabriel's parents, he was able to tell them, and that was one of the things I was very annoyed with his parents when they made the assumption that he did not do that woodworking, and he tells him, I would be lost without him. This is
that
all
was cool
Gabriel.
To witness.
You should be so proud. And the fact that they are in awe of what he can do because they thought it was a little hobby that he liked to work with wood when he was younger.
I love that his boss said everything that you guys should, you gotta be so proud of him.
Yeah. And the fact that his mom was able to say Nash's name again and that she apologized, that was good. I know that it didn't end and everything is the best, but you could tell that they were working towards
I think that's
trying
realistic,
to be.
though. It's a step in the right direction.
It is, because if she gave us all the warm and fuzzies, we'd be like, yeah, that's not how it goes in real life. So I love that they live outside of Sugar Creek and she's writing her books.
Me too.
And they have a baby and he does woodwork. And they're packing it all up and shipping it out, which ironically to Hudson and his wife.
Yes.
So that was funny. She said, he makes a comment of something, are you happy or does it bother you? She goes, I'm happy for him. And he says, I'm happy for him too, as long as he's not happy with my wife or something like that. I was like, oh. So this was just a beautiful, remarkable story of reconciliation and what it can look like.
Yes.
I loved the story. I think there's a wonderful message of hope inside, tucked into these pages, and I loved it. That concludes our episode of What We Keep. We hope you enjoyed this discussion and want to continue the conversation with us. You can hit us up on our Instagram page at Postbook Depression Podcast or on our Facebook page at Postbook Depression Discussion Group. You can also email us at postbookdepressionpodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, keep reading.